About to show you 15 things that every single Australian gets that half of America would call socialist propaganda. And here's the kicker. Australia's economy? Still capitalist. Still thriving. Still producing more millionaires per capita than almost anywhere on Earth. By the end of this video, you're either going to be furious, packing your bags, or questioning everything you've been told about how a country should treat its citizens. Stick around for number 13. It's the one that gets Americans the most triggered. Let's go. Look, before you click away thinking this is some political rant, it's not. This isn't about left versus right. This is about results. Because here's what nobody talks about. Australia ranks higher than the United States in quality of life, happiness indexes, life expectancy, and economic freedom. Yeah, you heard that right. Economic freedom. The Heritage Foundation's 2025 index ranks Australia 6th globally with a score of 79.3. America, 25th with 70.1. So how is it possible that a country that does all these socialist things that would make half of Congress have a meltdown is somehow freer and wealthier per capita than America? That's what we're about to unpack. And I'm warning you now, some of these are going to make you angry. Not at me, but at the system you've been living under. And before we get to the end, I'm going to show you the real cost of not having these systems. And it's way more expensive than you think. Let's start with the big one. Number 1, universal health care. And before you say socialist medicine, let me ask you this. What's more socialist? A system where everyone pays a small amount in taxes and nobody goes bankrupt from cancer treatment? Or a system where private insurance companies, literally for-profit corporations, decide whether you live or die based on their quarterly earnings? In Australia, if you break your leg, get diagnosed with cancer, or have a baby, your out-of-pocket cost is zero. Not zero after deductible. Not zero if your insurance approves it. Zero. And here's the part that breaks American brains. Australians pay less in taxes for health care than Americans pay in insurance premiums. The average American family spends $23,000 a year on health care as of 2025. The average Australian? About $0 to $5,000, depending on if they want private insurance for extra stuff. Medical bankruptcy is the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in America. In Australia, it basically doesn't exist. Think about that. Number 2, a minimum wage you can actually live on. As of July 2025, Australia's minimum wage is $24.95 per hour. That's about $16.20 USD. America's federal minimum wage? Still $7.25. But here's the wild part. Australia's McDonald's workers make nearly $25 an hour, and a Big Mac actually costs less in Australia than it does in America when you account for purchasing power. So that whole raising minimum wage will destroy the economy argument? Yeah, Australia already proved that wrong. And their unemployment rate? 4.3%. America's? 4.4%. Lower wages don't create more jobs. They just create more poverty. Wait until you hear what they do for weekend workers. I'll get to that in a minute. Number 3, superannuation. This is forced retirement savings. Every single employer in Australia is required by law to contribute an additional 12% of your salary into a retirement account as of July 2025. You don't touch it. It just grows for your entire working life. So if you make $50,000 a year, your employer is dumping an extra $6,000 into your retirement fund. Every single year. By the time you retire, even minimum wage workers in Australia retire with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, in America, 45% of people over 55 have zero retirement savings. Is it freedom to let corporations pay you just enough to survive, but not enough to retire? Or is freedom actually being able to stop working when you're 65 without eating cat food? Number 4, paid parental leave. In Australia, as of July 2025, new parents get up to 24 weeks of paid leave from the government. And that's increasing to 26 weeks in 2026. That's on top of whatever their employer gives them. Oh, and the government also pays superannuation, that 12% retirement contribution on that parental leave pay. In America, zero federally mandated paid parental leave. You either go back to work 2 weeks after having a baby or you don't get paid. Land of the free, right? And before you say, but who pays for it? Australia's taxes are comparable to what Americans pay when you add up federal, state, and insurance premiums. The difference is Australians actually get something for their money. Number 5. 4 weeks of paid vacation. Minimum. By law, most Australians get 4 to 6 weeks of vacation time every year. In America, the average is, well, whatever your employer feels like giving you. And 25% of Americans get 0 paid vacation days. Australia legally requires it. And somehow, their economy hasn't collapsed. In fact, Australia held the world record for nearly 30 years without a recession before COVID, and then bounced back faster than almost anyone else. Wild, right? Okay, those are the money ones. But hold on, because what I'm about to show you next is how Australia makes sure workers aren't just paid fairly, but treated fairly. And number 6 is going to make every retail and restaurant worker in America lose their minds. Number 6, penalty rates. If you work on a weekend in Australia, you get paid 1.5 to 2 times your normal wage. If you work on a public holiday, 2.5 times your wage. So that means if you're making $25 an hour and you work Christmas Day, you're making $62.50 an hour. For flipping burgers. In America, you're lucky if you get time and a half for overtime, let alone weekends. This is why Australians actually want to work weekends. It's called respecting people's time. Crazy concept, I know. Remember that McDonald's worker making nearly $25 an hour? On Sunday, they're making about $37 an hour. And the Big Mac still costs the same. Number 7, the Fair Work Commission. This is a government agency that settles workplace disputes. If your employer is screwing you over, you can file a complaint with Fair Work, and they'll actually investigate and enforce labor laws. For free. In America, if your boss violates labor law, you have to hire a lawyer and sue them yourself. Good luck affording that on minimum wage. Australia has an entire government agency whose job is to make sure workers aren't exploited. And before you say government overreach, businesses in Australia are doing fine. In fact, Australia held the world record for the longest run without a recession. Nearly 30 years of continuous growth through the global financial crisis, multiple global shocks, and then bounced back from COVID faster than most developed nations. Let that sink in. Number 8, the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme, or PBS. This is how Australia makes sure life-saving medications don't cost more than your rent. Under PBS, the government negotiates with drug companies to cap prescription prices. As of 2025, the maximum you pay for most prescriptions is $31.60. And here's the exciting part. That cap drops to just $25 on January 1st, 2026. Insulin in Australia costs about $6 to $20 per prescription. In America, $300 to $1,000 per month. Cancer drugs, HIV medications, asthma inhalers, all capped. And if you're low income, even cheaper, about $6.60 per script. Americans are literally dying because they can't afford insulin. Australians are not. That's not socialism. That's basic human decency. Number 9, the Medicare levy surcharge. This one's clever. If you make over $93,000 a year in Australia and you don't have private health insurance, you pay a small extra tax, 1 to 1.5%. It's an incentive to keep the public system from getting overwhelmed while still keeping it free for everyone else. It's like a nudge system. High earners can either get private insurance or pay a bit more in taxes. Either way, the healthcare system is funded. And here's the thing. Nobody in Australia is fighting to get rid of Medicare. Not the left, not the right. It has bipartisan support because it works. All right, so far we've covered healthcare, money, and work protections. But what Australia does for opportunity. That's where things get really interesting. Stick with me, because number 10 is how Australia makes sure being poor doesn't trap you forever. Number 10, the Higher Education Loan Program, or HELP. Here's how college works in Australia. You go to university. The government pays your tuition up front. You don't pay it back until you're making over $67,000 a year. And that's a new threshold as of 2025, up from $54,000. And when you do pay it back, it's based on a tiered percentage of your income. The lowest tier is just 1% once you hit that threshold, gradually increasing as you earn more. No compound interest, just indexed to inflation. If you never make enough money, you never have to pay it back. The debt dies with you. Compare that to America, where 18-year-olds are signing up for $100,000 in debt with 6 to 7% interest before they even know what a mortgage is. Australian student debt doesn't multiply like a credit card. You're not paying back double what you borrowed. You're just paying back what you borrowed, slowly, when you can afford it. This is how you get doctors, engineers, and teachers without bankrupting an entire generation. Number 11, the First Home Owner Grant. Australia literally gives you money to buy your first house. Depending on the state, it's anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000. Queensland, for example, offers $30,000 for new builds under certain conditions through June 2026. In America, first-time homebuyers get a tax credit. Maybe, if you qualify. And good luck finding a house you can afford anyway. Australia actively helps young people buy homes because they understand that homeownership builds wealth and stability. It's an investment in the next generation. And speaking of housing, number 12 is how Australia makes sure people don't end up homeless just because they're poor. Number 12, public housing programs. Australia invests heavily in public housing. Not shelters, not tent cities, actual apartments and houses for low-income families. Is it perfect? No. Is there a wait list? Yes. But the goal is to house people, not criminalize them for being poor. Now, here's where definitions matter. Australia's homelessness rate includes people couch surfing or in unstable housing, a broader definition than America uses. So while Australia reports about 49 per 10,000 and America reports 18 per 10,000, Australia's number includes people America doesn't count at all. What matters is this. Australia has far fewer people sleeping on the streets, and they're actively working to house everyone. In America, we spend more money policing homelessness than we would just housing people. Australia does the opposite. Okay, deep breath, because the last 3 things I'm about to tell you, these are the ones that make Americans absolutely lose it. If you made it this far, drop a comment right now with 13 because you're about to hear the most controversial one. Let's go. Number 13, universal gun background checks. And yeah, I know, this is the one. In 1996, Australia had a mass shooting in Port Arthur. 35 people died. The government immediately passed strict gun laws, mandatory buybacks, universal background checks, waiting periods, and licensing requirements. Since then, Port Arthur-style mass casualty public shootings have virtually vanished. There have been isolated incidents, like the 2022 Wiambilla shooting where 6 people died, including 2 police officers, or the 2024 Bondi Junction stabbing where a man killed 6 people with a knife because he couldn't get a gun. Think about that. When someone in Australia wants to cause mass harm, they're limited to knives. The death toll is still tragic, but it's a fraction of what happens when someone walks into an American school or mall with an AR-15. And before you say they banned all guns, they didn't. Australians can still own guns. Farmers have rifles. Sports shooters have ranges. But you need a license, training, and a legitimate reason. Meanwhile, America has more mass shootings than days in the year. You can call it socialism, or you can call it valuing human life over unrestricted access to weapons. But the data is clear. Australia's approach has saved countless lives. And yes, I know this one is triggering for some of you. That's fine. Disagree in the comments. But ask yourself this. Would you rather see a handful of tragedies over 30 years or one nearly every single day? Number 14. Preferential voting, also called ranked choice voting. In Australia, you don't just vote for one candidate. You rank them. First choice, second choice, third choice. This means third parties actually matter. It means you're not wasting your vote. It means the person who wins actually has the support of the majority through preference distribution. In America, you get two choices, and if you vote third party, people act like you just committed treason. Australia's system encourages diversity of ideas and coalition building. America's system ensures we're stuck in a two-party gridlock where nothing gets done. And here's the kicker. Voting in Australia is mandatory. You get fined about $20 to $50 if you don't vote without a valid reason. And guess what? Their voter turnout is over 92%. Ours is barely 60%. Is it more free to not vote and complain about the government, or to actually participate in democracy and have your voice count through rank preferences? Number 15. Climate change action. Australia has committed to net zero emissions by 2050. They've invested over $20 billion in renewable energy. Solar, wind, battery storage. In America, half the country still debates whether climate change is even real. And before you say it's too expensive, Australia's renewable energy sector is one of the fastest growing parts of their economy, growing over 10% annually. It's creating jobs. It's lowering energy costs for households. Meanwhile, America is still subsidizing fossil fuels while Californians watch their state burn every summer and Floridians deal with stronger hurricanes every year. Australia treats climate change like the scientific reality it is. America treats it like a political opinion. And this connects back to everything I've said. Australia makes long-term investments in its people and its future. America argues about whether people deserve health care. So here's the reveal I promised at the beginning. What's the real cost of not having these systems? Americans spend more per capita on health care than any country on Earth. Over $13,000 per person in 2025, and still go bankrupt for medical bills. Americans work longer hours, take less vacation, and retire later, if they retire at all. 45% of Americans over 55 have zero retirement savings. Americans are crushed by student debt. $1.7 trillion collectively, can't afford homes, and live in constant fear of one emergency wiping them out financially. Australia isn't perfect. No country is. But they figured out something America refuses to admit. Taking care of your citizens isn't socialism. It's smart economics. Because when people aren't drowning in medical debt, when they can afford to take time off, when they can buy homes and retire with dignity, they spend money. They start businesses. They invest in their communities. Australia proves that you can have a strong economy and a social safety net. You can be capitalist and compassionate. Their economy is ranked 6th in the world for freedom. 6th, above America. So is Australia socialist? No, they're capitalist with a conscience. The question isn't whether America can do these things. We're the richest country on Earth. We can. The question is whether America wants to. If you made it to the end, I want you to do something. Don't just drop a like, although definitely do that too. I want you to pick one of these 15 things and ask yourself, why don't we have this? Not how will we pay for it? We spend more per capita on healthcare than Australia does and get worse outcomes. We can afford it. Ask, why have we been convinced that taking care of people is radical? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's have a real conversation. And if this video made you think, share it with someone who needs to see it. Send it to that friend who always says, but socialism doesn't work. Let's see what they say. I'll see you in the next one.